The one I never knew I needed. What's good? Bevan here with Tried and True EDC. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Spyderco Harpy. But this is kind of like the refresh version, and we'll talk about why that is when we get to the handle. Before we jump in, let's talk quickly about the packaging. Pretty standard stuff from Spyderco. This one does come in a bubble wrap versus sometimes it's just a little plastic baggie, and you get some documents in there. Now, something about the history of the Harpy. The Harpy came out in 1987, and it's gone through many different variations. Either it's a plain edge, it's got that spider edge serration. So that's a unique serration that Spyderco created, where it's one large serration and two smaller ones, and so forth, as a pattern repeats itself. But this one is different because they've all been pinned constructions for the most part. Let's talk about the blade. So this one uses a Hawkbill blade shape, as you can see. So it's really great for draw cuts. Right, you get it in hand and it's able to gather the material that you're cutting. This is in VG10. These are being manufactured in Seki City, Japan. It's got that thumb hole that Spyderco is known for. You get the Spyderco insignia on that side of the blade. Pretty standard in terms of the branding and where it's located on the blade. It is extremely sharp. Let's find out how sharp. So I'm going to do something a little bit different than what I usually do in terms of cutting, especially when it gets to the rope. So here's some magazine paper. Like nothing. Zip tie. Pretty easy. And here's rope. It's a 3/8 of an inch poly rope. Wow. With ease. And here's some cardboard. That was easy. More paper. Damn, this thing cuts nice. Let's talk about the handle. So as I was alluding to the changes that were made, which is now that it does have screws on the other side, so you can disassemble the knife. Another thing that you're going to notice right away about the handle, so it is stainless steel, has a bit of weight to it. The overall length is about 6.5 inches. The blade, which I've neglected to mention in the beginning, it is 2 3/4 of an inch with a cutting edge that is slightly over 2.5 inches. And then the handle itself is 3 7/8 of an inch. You're going to notice a little slot right there. And what that is a shackle key drying slot. And you're probably wondering, well, what is that? I have no idea. I'm joking. So let's break that down. A shackle key is a tool that's used in environments by sailors to tighten and loosen the screw pin on shackles. And the drawing slot itself was added as a function so that it would minimize corrosion, especially in marine environments. Now, I went and took a look online. I was able to find that the shackle key drawing slot that is on the Harpy, the function for it isn't so much to be used as a shackle key. So its primary function is to act as a drying slot. So it allows any water to kind of filter out quicker than it could be, just minimize the risk of corrosion. However, using it as a shackle key could be dangerous because you can see inside that is the spring for the lock. So you could potentially damage that if you use it as a shackle key. Something to keep in mind. So it's got quite a few points of contact. You can have it tip up, tip down, left or right orientation. I want to call out this did come tip down right hand carry. And when I went to switch the clip, you can see a few parts where it kind of got scratched up. So the contact from the clip screw maybe too tightly bound to the handle itself. So when I was unscrewing it, kind of left a bit of a mark right there. Let's talk about the opening and closing action, as well as the lock. Action is very fluid, it's very smooth. It is running on phosphorus bronze washers. This is not a very Spidey flickable knife unless you do a little bit of wrist action. However, I would imagine once it starts breaking in, it will just be a little bit more smooth to where you can flick it out without using any wrist snap. But it's doable. The Spidey hole on this is a bit rough. For the most part, most particles don't have this chamfered very well, so you will feel a bit of a grab. Has never been a real issue, but I felt like I noticed it more on this model than I did on some of my other Spyderco models. Something I want to call out there. And you can't close this with one hand because this portion of the blade does fall on your finger first. So as you drop down, you don't have any risk of it cutting you. Granted, you do put up as high as you can. If you put it down here, let's see, that's fine too. So I just want to test that out. Easily closes one hand, open it. Makes it very convenient, ease of access. And it does use a back lock. So right there, as mentioned, the spring is right in there. Press it, opens up, and you're able to close it just like that. Let's talk about the ergonomics. This is comfortable in hand. I will say the only thing that is not comfortable is since it's stainless steel, the inner edges of the handle right here can be a bit sharp. So if you're using for heavy use and you're really gripping down, you may begin to start feeling as your fingers kind of start digging into this area of the handle, you may feel some pressure and discomfort. I haven't gotten to the point where I've felt it from hard use, but that's something I want to call out. This is a bit sharp around the edges on this part of the handle. The back's fine just because you do have the back spacer in this portion. You do have the lock in the back spacer that kind of smooths out very well. This is really well done. I can barely feel any gaps. I can't feel any gaps actually. The back spacer is really well done. I cannot feel any gaps at all. I can barely see it. So that's really well done. It's just it forms and kind of integrates really well. My most comfortable grip is the Saber grip right here. You are able to get all four fingers on the handle. I do have medium-sized hands. And hammer grip, that's fine as well. You do feel much more pressure from the pocket clip than you would in the Saber grip. And then the reverse grip, that works pretty good as well. It feels good in hand. But then at this point, actually, this portion of your palm starts to dig into the shackle key drawing slot right there. Let's talk about the pocket clip. This is a very typical hourglass Spyderco pocket clip. It does function well. These are reliable clips in my opinion. But let's take a shot of that in the pocket. All right. So tip down. Tip up right hand carry. Quite a bit of the handle does stick out, and it's pretty wide as well. I wouldn't say it's as wide as a Manix 2, but I have some comparisons I'll bring up in just a sec. So yeah, take a look right there. That's about how much how much real estate it's being taken up. Still got enough room to get your hands in there. Easy in, easy out. Let's do some quick size comparisons. So what do I have here? Something it's similar in terms of having a similar blade shape because it does also have a Hawkbill. This is the Carrot Hawk on the top. And you can see it does have an Emerson wave. It is a wider handle and does have the ring. On the bottom, let's bring out the Sage 5. This is the Rex 121 version and does have quite a bit more blade. Well, let's see. It's got quite a bit more handle than the Harpy. And then we have the Delica 4 on the bottom. Also more handle, but in terms of blade overall, it's comparable. Now top, I'll just bring out something ridiculous that is much larger, but I'll give you a frame of reference to how the Harpy, in terms of size, as compared to the Military 2. So yeah, much smaller. Let's talk cost and availability. This is $141 It's the retail price. Availability, I've seen it a couple places. I will throw links in the description on where I'm able to find it currently. But if you look online, type in Spyderco Harpy, you should be able to find enough retailers that are offering this. I myself did buy this from Indiana Knives, and I'm going to share something that I think it's an awesome business strategy. What Indiana Knives offers is a section on their website that says make an offer. You click on it and then they'll show you all the products that they are willing to accept an offer on. Now, it doesn't mean the offer you make will be accepted. However, they're really quick at getting back to you. And what they will do if they don't accept your offer is they'll provide you a counter offer. I offered $113 for this, so which is roughly 20% off. They came back with 118. So just by making an offer, I was able to save $23. And Indiana Knives does not charge shipping or tax. Shipping might be depending on a dollar amount, but I wasn't charged any shipping fees for this. So Indiana Knives, really cool feature is that they give you the opportunity to make an offer. So I ended up picking this up for $118. I think it's a great value for that price. Again, I'll throw some links on there. It is no longer being offered. I possibly bought the last one, the last Harpy from Indiana Knives, but I'll show you. I'll give you the link so you can go take a look at the other Spydercos and other knives that they have that make an offer feature. What are my final thoughts? I really like this, and just as I was mentioning in the very beginning in the introduction, this is one I never knew I needed. Granted, I have enough knives. I don't need another knife, but this is very useful. I carried it for about 2 weeks prior to this video just so I can get a sense and feel for the functionality, how well it cuts, and it's very nice. Yeah, it's VG10, right? But VG10 is a perfectly capable steel. I know there's so many steels out there right now that people get the perception that these other steels that used to be perfectly fine and competent are as if they're no longer that. They still are. This cuts very well. It gathers that material extremely easy. So I really enjoy carrying this. For the most part, I paired it up with something that was more of a straight edge versus this Hawkbill shape. That way it had the alternative to cut different things, right? This is not so much for food prep. Actually, while I was at work, I did try to peel an apple with this. It worked, but wasn't as efficient as I've been able to become with like a draw point blade or maybe a sheep's foot. So something I did notice about that. But otherwise, I handled majority of the tasks I needed to very well. And I would absolutely recommend this knife. Now, $141, stainless steel VG10, you may think material-wise, it is possibly not worth the value. So if you're able to find a deal on this, I think, especially for what I paid at 118, I think this is a good deal. At 141, I think it's still worth it. But again, I got lucky with the make an offer, and so for me, I think I got a pretty good deal out of that. Yeah, lots of functionality with this one. It is, as I mentioned, a bit wide though, right, in the pocket. But I typically don't put anything else in my pockets when I'm carrying a knife, at least not in the same pocket. Yeah, it's a nice one. Very functional. Something to consider. Let me know if you pick one of these up as well. Maybe you have a different variation, one of the older ones with a pin construction, and maybe you got the one with the spider edge. Someone from my unboxing video mentioned how they have the Harpy blade on a Delica handle, which I thought was really cool. Don't think that's available anymore. But yeah, really appreciate you tuning in. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay frosty.